Will you please rise and join me in the pledge to our flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under God, indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
Right. Let the record show that all board members are present and accounted for except for Trustee Cardona. I will entertain a motion to adopt the agenda.
Second.
It's been moved in second, and all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Move on now to public comment. Members of the public may address the board regarding items within the board's jurisdiction that are not on the agenda at this time. Members wishing to address the board are allotted 2 minutes per speaker. Please note that the speaking time cannot be delegated to another person. Members should indicate the agenda item or topics for which they wish to speak when beginning their comments. It is important to remember that the board rules in California law prohibits board members from discussing comments or attempting to answer a question posed by the speaker during public comment time. If necessary, the superintendent will request the district staff to follow up with speakers. All members who wish to speak in person should complete a speaker's card and submit it to the board assistant. To submit comments online, you can do so via Assembly Gamut meetings in the live chat or on YouTube. The board assistant will provide your comment to the board as appropriate. Is there anyone who would like to address the board on an item that is not on the agenda? Do we have anyone online who has any comments? All right, with that, we will move on to reports. We'll start with the Robla Education Foundation.
And this evening, there is no report due to the fact that we're going to have some very lengthy and informative reports presented to us.
All right, thank you so much. Robla Teachers Association. CSEA. Superintendent's report.
Good evening. Just a few things to report. We had fall break last week, and I did take a couple of days off and attended the CalSoups conference at the end of the week. The community schools grant survey will be coming out soon. I was waiting to make sure that we had all the translations for all our families. The California Community School Partnership Program, CCSPP, implementation grant 4 was just released this week. I didn't anticipate it to be released until November, so it's an early release. It'll give us more time to get all the information together for our application. So any staff families listening to it, when the survey comes out tomorrow or Monday, please complete it. There will be one specific for staff and one for families. And just a few school events that are coming up. Tomorrow, Robla has their movie night. I think it's In and Out 2. Is that right? Inside Out. I knew that didn't sound right. Inside Out, not the hamburger. And then next Tuesday, Bell has their costume parade and trick or treat, and Taylor has their harvest festival. And next Wednesday, Glenwood has their harvest festival, and Maine has their trunk and treat. Friday, we will have our staff development, so no school for students. That's the end of my report.
Okay, we'll now move on to board member reports. Trustee Devine?
Nothing at this time.
Okay. Trustee Hamilton start.
Nothing at this time.
Trustee Barnes?
Just very briefly, we met, the superintendent and I met with our monthly LMI meeting, but it hasn't been so monthly recently, but that's the goal. And that was with Leah and Lydia, the head of RTA and CSEA, and it was very productive, and a lot came out of it. Not that I will go into detail here, but just want to say that was a very productive meeting. That's it.
Excellent. And I have nothing to report. We'll now move on to action items. Action item 3A, approve change order number 1 for the agreement with Enviroplex Inc. for the Bell Avenue new preschool and transitional kindergarten classroom construction project.
So moved.
It's been moved in second. Discussion? Do you want to speak to the change order?
Ms. Noreen Bruno from GFD. This is a change order for $20,964 for some accommodations regarding ADA at the administration part of the preschool building. And Ms. Noreen Bruno can answer any more details how we get to this point.
Okay. Any questions or discussion? Hearing none, we'll move forward to a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Item 3B, approve change order number 2 to the agreement with Enviroplex for the Bell Avenue new preschool and transitional kindergarten classroom construction project.
So moved.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion?
This is regarding the lab. Our district decided to do this. We think we need it, and also we think our employees in the future, when they do some work, when they go underneath. So it's something that is needed. The cost for the district is $23,400. Enviroplex is covered in the other half of the cost. Anything else you need to add?
Good evening. The rat slab was, if you want to have a little background on it, the civil engineer that works for the Enviroplex modular company wanted to know if the district wanted a rat slab. The architect said it wasn't to do it exactly like we had done at the Bell building, which did not have this rat slab poured. So somewhere along the line, it got onto the drawings anyway. DSA approved it. And now it wasn't in anybody's scope to pay. So the district has elected to pour it anyway. To pour it because it is protection for moisture. Although it has been lime treated, which is very heavy concrete treatment over the soil. It's not structural, but the district wants to have it, and Enviroplex has agreed to split the cost because of the air. And that's a $23,400.
$23,400.
Is that split in half then?
That's half.
Okay, any additional questions, discussions, or debate? Hearing none, we'll move forward to a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you so much. Okay, I'll move on to presentations and information, and we have the Robla District Facilities Workshop.
Good evening, good evening. This is a follow-up workshop to the workshop we had recently, about a month ago. And as we continue on in this journey, I will remind everyone that pre-COVID, the district has a specific set of needs around facilities. And those needs still exist. But post-COVID, post-changes in the market, the growth that we know that's coming in the Panhandle, with new residents coming in, the expectation of influx of enrollment, TK coming in. additional needs are before the district. So this workshop is going to lay out a process that the executive team have gone through to prioritize the old needs and the more current needs. So the needs have not gone away, needs have just been increased. So there may be things that were on the table, top of that list 2 years ago. It may fall in line in a different location this time around. As I mentioned the first workshop, the more conversations we have in this discussion, the greater the benefit is to the district. And so this is really your workshop. I am an advisor to the district, an advisor to the board. There's some things that I have been asked to do from the superintendent and given some direction from the board. I will let everyone know that I gave the executive team some tools on how to come to a process of determining what the greatest needs are currently. And I gave them some suggestions on how to use those tools. And as a result, we will be presenting 8 projects and some additional projects on how they have applied the tools. And the tools will be explained later on in this presentation so that you'll know how they came to the conclusion of what they believe the current most urgent needs of the district are and how those needs 2 or 3 years ago, where they now fall in line. So we'll start with facilities mission statement that we posted in the last meeting. In recognition of the impact facilities have on student learning potential, our mission is to provide clean, comfortable, safe, and well-designed facilities for students and staff, thus creating the optimal environment to allow every student to achieve their full potential. We talked about some of the activities that the district has already taken on, been responsible stewards of the money that was given by way of facilities bond. 3 of the schools here have been right-sized. They have been rebuilt. Kindergarten, TK pre-K grant application, that kindergarten is currently under construction at Bell. There have been kindergarten classroom construction, state aid applications, general obligation bonds. There's been some 21st century education specification added to the district. One of the things that the board president mentioned the last meeting, he's interested in a rolling 5-year facilities master plan. We're at the very end of the most recent facilities master plan, so a new facilities master plan is needed. So that's one of the things we'll be focused on, maybe as an additional follow-up, board president, on how we proceed with creating that rolling 5-year master plan. Okay. And the journey that the superintendent intends to take the district as it relates to facilities is facilities with an equity focus. And you'll hear that repeated throughout this exercise, that equity focus. What are the greatest needs in the district currently? Robla facilities projects, the journey ahead. This is the outline, and I'll give everyone an opportunity to read it. All right? And so as you read this particular outline, the superintendent will speak to this slide because this is the journey that she intends to offer to the district. Okay.
Good evening. As you read the list, you'll notice, as Mr. Hickey says, all the projects that are currently in our facilities master plan is not eliminated, right? They still exist, the needs exist. But in my 16th month, right, my first year is my listening and learning year, and I go through our facilities. We have beautiful facilities, right? But the projects that I had in mind has a focus on academics, right, instructional focus, and what services we provide our students that meet our students' social and emotional needs, right? So what, from a facilities perspective, do I believe we need to consider to ensure that we are maximizing what we're offering? So the topics that I was thinking of is making sure that we offer transitional kindergarten at all the other sites. Currently, we are unable to do that, so what do we need to do, right? expanding our DLI program at Glenwood Elementary, our TK DLI class. Making sure with all the construction and the history of what happened with constructions, making sure that we have adequate spaces for our support services. We are fortunate that we have SCOE clinicians. We are fortunate that we have social workers, psychologists, speech language pathologists, and then we will be applying for the community schools grant, right? We need services we need support spaces for all these services. What can we do to enhance our learning environments? And we have to enhance our support services, our kitchens. We talked about what we need to do with some of our kitchens, or I know one of the projects that was already approved was a central kitchen. We'll talk more about that. And then we have some projects, one project here, which is the main restrooms, right? Currently, we're leasing those, and I'll talk more about that when I talk about each program, right? So what the eight projects that you see, right, are what I came up with thinking from an academic lens. Next slide. So what you need to know from an academic lens in terms of the requirements for transitional kindergarten. Currently, the requirements are 24 to 2, 24 students to 2 adults. That's what we have right now. Starting fall of 2025, there's a really great chance that that ratio is going to go down to 20 to 2, which means 10 students for 1 adult. 10 students for 1 adult. Right? So if you look at what we have, and this is as of October 11th, we currently have 3 English-only TK classes. We have 1 DLI TK class.
It's still working.
Okay.
Question, why is it going to change?
Because they feel that the lower class size for that grade level for students will benefit from a smaller student to staff ratio.
They who? California legislature, Department of Education. Is there
I believe
a change in the law, or was it a change in policy by the State Department of Education?
Oh gosh, I should know this. I believe this is one of Governor Newsom's initiatives.
Correct.
It was always meant to be 10 to 1. And just to give you a history, when you have kindergarten, we have 24 students max, right? 24 to 1 is the average that we should have. In preschool, it's an 8 to 1 ratio. So in transitional kindergarten, they started with the 12 to 1, but they feel because of the lower age, starting all kids who turn 4 will be eligible for TK. A 10 to 1 ratio is actually the best.
I guess what I'm trying to figure out is, did the State Department of Education just decide to change it, or was there actual legislation passed in the California legislature that switched it?
It was in the law when TK became in effect last year. So last year was the Governor Newsom budget in the actually 23-24. That was the first year that TK was implemented in the school districts. That's the law says by this year you have to be 24 to 1. By 25, 26 you have to be 20 to 1. So that's when it was.
So it was done in a budget trailer bill.
So in order to receive funding for us, we had to be in the budget yes. Mm-hmm.
So just for those of you who don't know, oftentimes what happens is things are put in, whenever they do the budget, things are put in what's called budget trailer bills. It's a way in which to pass policy without it going through full debate. They just decided that they wanted to do it, and so they made it as a part of the budget and just passed it on through. Okay, thank you.
And for the 25-26 school year, that's actually the very, very first year of the last rollout. So all students who turn 4 during the school year, anytime during the school year, will be eligible to enroll in transitional kindergarten starting at the beginning of the year, right? Truthfully, I thought they were going to put a pause on that. I'm still hoping they'll put a pause.
So to be clear, they increased availability, and then they decrease class sizes, which basically means we're going to need more in terms of facilities, more in terms of staffing, and chances are we're not going to get more in terms of money.
That's a great assessment.
Okay.
So our responsibility is to prepare, right? If we look at just our current numbers, right? Just this year, oh wait, I think I didn't talk about the TK. We have a TKK combo, right? We have a TKK combo at Glenwood. One of the things, last year Glenwood only offered DLI TK. And some of the families in that community, they wanted TK at their home school. So this year, we have a TKK combo. And when you have a TKK combo, you are required to follow the guidelines with TK. So next year, any TKK combos, if we have that, would require a 20-to-2 ratio. But you are correct. More classrooms would be required. So going back to if we needed to, do we have enough facilities this year? What would we need? We would have needed an additional class that we don't have.
What are the facilities difference requirements between kindergarten and TK?
They're the same. Kindergarten and TK are the same.
Okay.
Yes, it's just the staffing ratio is different. Kindergarten does not have a 24-to-2, nor will not have a 20-to-1 ratio, 20-to-2 ratio. Question. This is a workshop, right? So if you guys have questions, anyone can just ask. Questions? Okay, next slide.
Actually, to Board President's concern, there was a conversation in the state because the state has declining enrollment statewide, like a lot of states. They looked at where the state could have an impact on increased enrollment. The thought was in the early childhood education. So the governor decided that through state aid, they would encourage school districts to build more classroom space. So he did provide the money for the classrooms. The hopes was it would actually increase ADA, and through the increase in ADA, you would get the budget, if it works. I think that you have some information that gives you a forecast based on the current enrollment in your current or early childhood education program. In the hopes that when these buildings are brand new, more parents would decide to bring their kids back to early childhood education that exited during COVID because they were concerned with the health of their children. So it's a gamble because you will have the facilities and to be able to afford the staffing will be predicated on, do we actually see that influx and increase in enrollment? Okay. Equitable school facilities. And so I'm gonna drop down to that bottom paragraph. The first one we read on the first workshop. Robla School District considered all facilities needs of the district and applied to each project a facilities needs index and a project cost index to establish current priority of projects. So these are the tools that I mentioned that I offered to the executive team, a facilities needs index and a project cost index. And by applying those two tools, you'll see how 8 projects have been prioritized. Here are the immediate needs that the executive team have identified. Taylor Street needs classrooms. The kitchen is in horrible conditions. There's safety concerns in the kitchen. Taylor lost 5 classrooms during recent modernization, and 2 additional modulars are red tagged. Bell Avenue needs playground space, new NPR, new kitchen. In terms, the central kitchen is highlighted there in yellow because the central kitchen has been a topic of conversation in the district for a number of years now. Glenwood Elementary School, new classrooms, new office space. They're busting at the seams. They have some specialty services where the current staff there is having a difficult time staffing all of their housing their staff, and providing classrooms for their students. Robla Elementary School repaint exterior older classroom buildings that were not reconstructed. Address potential impact of the Panhandle residential development. Your CBO had enrollment projections completed by Davis Demographics. They're projecting in the immediate projected housing that will be available in the next 2 to 3 years, the district will have an increase of 227 students. And so what currently you see from the few bullets above, there are 2 sites, Taylor and Glenwood, that currently has no more space. And so many of those students, if the district does not build a new facility, will impact enrollment at Glenwood. So here's the facilities need index. I gave the executive team a set of categories on how to consider what are your facilities needs. They ranked those categories from 1 to 7. And once they ranked the importance of each category, a number was applied. And these numbers to the left total 100. And all of this is open to discussion. This is what the team brought forth to this workshop. Here are the priorities. There could be other categories, and that's open to discussion. But this is the foundation upon which they established priorities for these 8 projects. Any questions on this slide?
Is this a time to discuss how we feel about the particular values given to each?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I would definitely say that required to accommodate increased enrollment, community development, new housing, yada, 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 needs to be second. I mean, I don't think it should be first. I think obviously for me, safety, security, and ADA compliance is number 1. But then I also think that, accommodating, making sure that we have space for the students that are going to be coming in ought to be number 2. So I would probably swap 2 and 3 at least. That would just be my thought.
Any additional comments? Well, this is very meeting where you can disagree with the board president.
I think it might be tied because I think that equity inclusion piece is important. Oh, thank you. And not just because it says Taylor's cafeteria, but Taylor's whole school. So I think maybe it could be tied for both. It could both be 20, and then we could take down. And I think the age and condition of existing facilities could be a little higher too.
Okay. And I think we thought about that at one time. I think we did have both of them at 20. I think they were the same total at one point. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes, and just to give you history, if you add all that together, it comes up to 100. So I was probably playing up with values. So we actually can recalibrate, right, the F&I if we need to, just to see where it falls on priority.
What I'm really interested in, is there anyone here that believes that there's another category that should be added based on where you are, your responsibilities? Do you see something that we may have missed in this exercise?
This isn't another category. I do have a question that's about the increased enrollment. Now we're talking about the Panhandle, and the Panhandle is I'm really bad in my directions. It's northwest from here. Yeah, so northwest. That's that direction. And it's in a really weird location, and I get the fact that is Robla and everything like that. But can you tell me a little bit more about how I mean, just because if it were right in the middle of Robla, I'd understand. We get all that enrollment. But given where it is, what are the odds that we get all of the projected enrollment?
That's a good question. I had that same thought or question too.
I can,
Yeah, that's a great question, and that's actually the question that we ask to Davis demographics. That's and actually like once the students live in our boundaries, they need to attend to our schools unless we sign them out to go to another district. But also is the reason that is there because it's a projection. It will be several years. We go before we go to the 200 and something students that they're projected. But families in that area have there's quite a few schools a lot closer than Robla. There is actually like a walking distance, but there is but those, so that's it's a potential. So that's a good question. Yeah.
Davis Demographics projected that Robla would receive about 227 students, right? And the other one I think is Twin Rivers. But can you remind us the rules regarding what requirements would be needed to make a new school? Did we talk about that?
absolutely. And a great question, Member Barnes. 227 students, it's typically 10 classrooms. We don't build 10 classroom schools in the state of California. If in the future, or if something changes with that project and that number gets closer to 500, now we're building a 20 classroom school. Every new school has to be first approved by the California Department of Education. The California Department of Education does not approve 10 classroom schools. So what school districts, the challenge is, even though the Panhandle is projected to expand to greater numbers in the future, school districts cannot build schools for future growth. You can only project out 3 years. In some cases, they allow 5 years. So they don't allow school districts to build schools or classrooms that you don't need. So you can't build a 20 classroom school and only need 10 classrooms. All right? The state is about what's your immediate need. So there's always an absorption, there's always a transition. So how do you transition to the need for 10 more classrooms when Taylor does not have enough and Glenwood does not have enough? And Glenwood is projected will see the lion's share of the influx if it occurs. So therefore we know that during the transition period, Taylor and Glenwood is going to need more classrooms because the state of California is not going to approve a new school until you have the numbers and you can fill that classroom up. So we can't warehouse classrooms in the state of California.
Question, how many classrooms does New Hope currently occupy?
9.
9?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So if we were
That's good thinking.
So if we were looking to build a school and lease some of the space to New Hope, that would be 20 classrooms. They can then plan for a future in which they can build their own school, and it gives us time to then look at as the population there grows. We then would have a school ready to accommodate that additional growth. Just an idea.
We also, when New Hope does decide or find a different location, we turn the new school into an elementary middle school combo. To bring middle schools, so that way our students can stay with us more.
Well, okay.
I know.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that goes into us becoming a middle, but that aside, because the idea is this, is that the concept of the neighborhood school is important. And I would feel really bad having students who are in the Panhandle have to come all the way out this way, ride the bus all the way out this way to have to come to school when, in particular, there might be a school right down the street. So the idea of doing something that would, in a way that would allow them to be able to have a school, a quality school, brand new school in their neighborhood, while at the same time, uh, allowing them to stay in Robla is, I think, could be a win-win. Anyway, just an idea.
I think that's something to consider.
Yeah.
A lot of us do not realize that you only have to follow state guidelines if you're using state money. So school districts that are endowment rich, such as Palo Alto does not use DSA because they use their own money. And so in that situation, if there was an influx of money where you did not have to access state funds, that could happen. But if the state gets involved, the state looks at your current enrollment, not, again, you're projecting out what a charter school may do.
Okay.
I'm not saying they wouldn't do it. It's a great conversation, but just keep that in mind as well.
Okay.
Any more questions or comments on the facilities needs index?
I'm from Glenwood School, and I'm a parent, and we need classrooms because some of the classrooms, some of the kids share have one teacher and the other teacher took teaching. So I'm just here to advocate we need classrooms.
Thank you for your comment, and the executive team is very clear on that. One of the initial things they asked me to do for Glenwood is give them an estimate on what it will cost to bring in 2 more modulars. Okay. And so that is already on the table. So the need is fully understood.
Okay.
But we thank you for your comment.
Thank you so much.
So
over here.
Yeah, I would really appreciate it looking at the increase. Thank you. Looking at supporting TK and preschool. We are in a flipped place with early literacy. We have 80% of our third graders that aren't reading at grade level. And in my conversation with a SCOE mentor in the last couple of weeks, they really feel that students are coming to kinder, which isn't required, to first, and they don't have the new, they don't have foundational literacy skills that are provided in preschool and TK. Those were just updated in October. They just came out. And if you see how many students have been to preschool at Robla Kindergarten, if you look at the data, it's telling us that we as a community need to figure out how to get TK students. So I would consider that, and if we're talking about literacy and you're talking about change in our community, early literacy needs to happen. And I appreciate Mrs. Chin, your commitment to that, but I do feel like as a school that doesn't support TK, we can't build that community of literacy. We don't have a playground space for TK. It's not appropriate for TK. So that would be my comment. Thank you.
So for the comments that Mr. Cap made, he's suggesting that this line item is more weighted. Any comments on that?
Well, the only question is, are we currently, because it is available district-wide, it's not available at every school site, but are there any students in the district who requested to attend TK that we have not been able to accommodate? So that's the only thing is, ideally, we'd like to have TK at each site. But I think in terms of priority, understanding that we have limited resources, I don't know that I would increase it, just because we do and we will have the facilities available to accommodate every student who's interested in TK, or every family. Having it at the schools, at the neighborhood school site at this point would be an added benefit or a luxury. I don't want to say a luxury. It's not a luxury, but I don't know. Anyway, I don't know if I'm being very, very clear, but I think we're already providing the access.
Yeah.
It's just a question of whether or not it's going to be at each school site.
And then I guess another thought to feedback off of that is like, what is the number or the percentage of TK eligible students who are not going to TK? Right. Because that would address that equity issue. That would address that literacy issue. If kids are just not going to TK because it's not being offered, or they're not going to TK because they don't want to.
Some parents still may not know that it's offered because it's a fairly new program.
Mhm.
The state, when they give us a number, there's about 100 more students that are not enrolled in our
Mhm.
district. They give us, based on the county rates,
Mhm.
you have 100 more students that could attend to TK.
Mhm. I think for this discussion, it's relevant only in that what does the, because we're talking about facilities right now. So we're talking about what does, the current facilities, how does that affect the enrollment? In terms of, that's how that is relevant. If it would be easier to get more kids enrolled in TK if there were, for example, TK classrooms here at Robla, then I think that's a valid part of the conversation. If that wouldn't make a difference, then I don't know that increasing the importance of it is going to make much of a difference.
And if I could just,
Yeah, that does. That is the point.
Yeah.
It is when a parent calls and asks if we have
Mhm.
TK because they have siblings, that's called community. And I can't
Mhm.
offer that. So when we're building community and you want me to build community, I cannot offer TK to my family. That, for me,
Mhm.
literacy, I cannot offer that. And that's something that is my point. That I cannot offer that. And a family doesn't want to go to Maine, and then we have to switch and send family to Sarah's place, and then they want to come back, and it's all that. So that is.
and if I could just clarify, again, this is facilities conversation, and next year will be a different situation because any student who turns 4, so if you turn 4, our last day is June 13th, so June 11th, you can enroll in TK on the first day of school, right? But I also want to clarify, we have not turned away any TK students, but I do have a TKK combo, right? And my preference is not to have a combo. That would be my preference because I believe classrooms that are one grade level focus will be best, and specifically during the foundational grades.
And I'll say that while this initial list I provided to the executive team, I did not weigh in on where they should fit into this priority list. But I will say, to Mr. Capp's point and to the point that the board president made earlier, there was a strong argument for moving this up, or having it more weighted, right? This is a similar impact on the district. This is an increase in enrollment due to exterior activity. This is a decision that the district can make. One is internal, the other one is external, but the impact is still on ADA.
Mm-hmm.
And so ADA brings in increasing your budget. So to me, that would be another consideration you should consider if you're going to give it more weight, because it's really the same argument here. One is an external decision. Developers are building housing. This is an internal decision to expand early childhood education. But budget-wise, the results are the same if it actually increases your enrollment. Can we move on from a facilities need index? Okay.
Sorry to interrupt. I do have 2 public comments. One from Nuvia. She's in agreement with updating our school kitchens facility to accommodate our current and future students is a big need. And then as well from a teacher from Glenwood, Ms. Hefner, agrees with Mrs. Chen's comment, preferable of no combo classes through 6th grade. Huge strain on staff and students' learning time.
Okay. So that's one index. The second index was just a simple price cost index. If it's less than 500,000, you have the money, let's get it done. It was given a 5. And then you can see the numbers that as we move down to 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. that priority was just really just based on the value of the project. Looking at budget can be limited. So when we add the facilities need index and the price cost index, and there's one thing after looking at this, I would give this group something to consider. Should these numbers be larger so that they really have an impact on that total score? You know, there's not much of a difference between 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So does this really change the needle over here if these numbers are so small? And I think when we had that discussion, that did not jump out at us, but now it does. It doesn't change the needle over here. Right? Because the minimum score here is a 5. So it doesn't even cover the spread. Something to consider. Any comments on the price cost index? No cost?
So I wanted to be the one to explain the different projects, right? So the first one is, you could just keep it there. Okay, maybe not. You could keep it where I could stand where I'm at. We have a camera.
Okay.
So the first project, as we talked about, is Taylor Street. So just to remind you, during modernization of Taylor Street, 10 portable classrooms were replaced with 5, right? So now we're down 5 classrooms, right? And we have 2 additional classrooms that are not available to us. They're red tagged. Currently, Taylor has 1 available classroom if I needed to increase enrollment, and that's room 18. And that is used for her restorative justice wellness room, a place where students need to go if they need timeout. For room 18 and PE, okay? And she has 1 additional classroom that is split for support services. So when I talk about support services, I'm talking about the services from our BCOAs. It could be our social workers, psychologists, clinicians, right? So this 1 additional classroom is split between our BCOAs, right? And in that classroom, half the room is split into 3 or 4 sections on one side, and then the other side is for ELOP. Right? So the question is, well, Taylor has 2 more classrooms, right? If they need to increase their enrollment, they have 2 available classrooms. Correct, they do. However, it will displace all our support services. Where are we going to have our BCOAs who provide small group instruction to our students? Where will our social worker have a confidential conversation? So that's Taylor's. So when I say, do they have 2 classrooms? Absolutely. But I want to ensure that if we're converting those classrooms into classrooms with students, right, that we also are mindful of how to ensure that we accommodate all our support staff.
So wait, hold on. How many classrooms do we actually need? Sorry, not counting the 2 that are going to exclude those. Does that mean we need 9 new classrooms instead of 8?
No. I'm just giving you the situation. If I wanted to offer TK at Taylor, I could. They actually have a play structure that's available to accommodate that age group, but they don't. I would have to displace one of these individuals or one of these groups, right? So in order to accommodate that, maybe I'm just going to have spaces for staff, for adults, versus classrooms for students. Questions? So just to clarify, after we go through all the projects and the presentations, we will have an activity. We will have an activity where, further right? Oh, okay. Can you hear me? That's better? Okay. We will have an activity where anyone in the audience, right, can make comments on any of the projects, right? So all the board members have a specific color that's lined, that's specific to them. And then the audience will have the pads that do not have lines. Questions? They have a specific color.
You know, and it may be best to make your comments now, because as we get through all of them, you may have forgotten the comments you want to make. So if anyone has a comment, let's make it now and just put it on the board.
So I just wanted to add, in addition to that, the spacing, the limited space that we do have also impacts our after-school program,
Oh, you got a line
because
paper.
every
That's what you
classroom
were
is
saying.
being used after school for our ELOP program. We have 3 on site: Start, Helen, and Freedom.
Like, what are you
So
talking about?
every classroom after school is being used after school because of the limited space that we have. In addition to that, well, I can go on and on, but really, just we're limited of space. Last year, we had a lot of parents trying to enroll, and we couldn't enroll them because we didn't have space to enroll them. We only had the limited amount of classrooms, 1 kindergarten, 1 first, 1 second. So it's just really hard. I think we're thinking about enrollment, increasing enrollment, things of that nature, and we can't do that at Taylor right now because of the loss of the permanent classrooms, which I'm going to say 6 because we only have 4 classrooms in that new wing and a library. So 6 classrooms plus the 2 that were red tagged. So it's 8 classrooms that we currently don't have that the other sites have. So it is really impactful.
Anything else, Ms. Crisp? Just write it down and just post it on there. Okay.
What does red tag mean?
There's some safety concern, because there's a safety concern. It's an old term that's called red tag, that is a warning sign not to go in.
And students aren't able to be in those classrooms.
And so the spaces that we're talking, so are you saying that it's cost prohibitive to not untag the room?
But the cost has not been evaluated yet. So we'll be making that determination, if it's cheaper to restore those back to use, or is it cheaper just to bring in new portables? Because those portables are already 25 years or older anyway. So they're already beyond their life cycle, 25 years.
Okay, next project. The next project is actually Taylor Street. And as Ms. Chris mentioned, right, that all the classrooms are used for ELOP, right? And we know that the schools that don't have a shade structure, or let me clarify, that didn't have a shade structure limit similar to Maine's, will have one this year, right? That is the goal, and Mr. Castillo has already put in place where Taylor, Glenwood, Bell will have, and Robla will have a shade structure. But what I thought of, a simple solution is to have additional shade structure right next to their current cafeteria. Currently, there are tables there, and if we had a small shade structure to cover that table, we can provide outside learning environments, as well as that could be available for the all the students in our ELOP program to eat at the same time. We know that Taylor's cafeteria is one of the smallest ones, so not all the students in the after-school programs can eat at the same time. I believe they have 2 sessions, correct? 2 sessions, right? But if we had an extended shade structure, we could provide some places for students to, have educational activities, but as well as feed them all at the same time.
And I'll add that that kitchen is not only the smallest, it's probably the one that is the most unsafe.
When you say unsafe, do you mean for the staff or for the students also, like quality-wise, like is there danger to the food?
It's both, but primarily for the staff. Right? There's some OSHA violations in there that needs to be corrected. But the district as a whole needs to determine where do they want to put the money in those individual kitchens or a central kitchen. So the central kitchen is still on the table, as you'll see from this particular exhibit. But the 8 exhibits that Ms. Chin is going to present, her journey says that these 8 probably needs to be addressed first. That's why she's putting forth to the board and to this body for open discussion to make a final decision on which projects goes first.
Oh, and to be clear, even if we were to build a central kitchen, that doesn't change the fact that at each of these school sites, there are plenty of issues that need to be addressed in those kitchens.
That's correct.
Those issues don't go away.
That's correct.
Next slide, please. This small project is actually in response to what Mr. Caff was mentioning. Robla Elementary actually has some classrooms, right? But their current play structure that supports kindergarten is age 5 to 12. So they do not have a play structure that accommodates age-eligible TK students, right? So to rectify that, we can add a play structure that is age appropriate. And that will allow us to offer TK at Robla Elementary.
Will that give us enough classroom seats in order to abide by the 20-to-2 ratio for students across the board for the entire district? Like if we opened up another classroom, because you were saying we had to, instead of 24 students, it's going to be 20. So if we were to sustain what we had, we still need another classroom. So opening up the Robla one would need that from the other schools, correct?
I know Robla has at least one classroom similar to Taylor that is used for restorative justice, wellness, support staff. But I would have to look in terms, because that class is not physically close to the play structure that would be age eligible. I would have to speak with Mr. Caff of which classes are in that kindergarten wing, right? Yeah. Yeah.
Would building a new play structure be less expensive than building, say, the classroom on
At another campus. That's a great question.
Mm-hmm.
So you'll see that the beautiful, I have to say, it's a beautiful play structure in the kindergarten wing for Robla. On each play structure, there is a stamp, and that is eligible for 5 through 12, ages 5 through 12. But if you go to all the other school sites, their kindergarten, like if I'm at Glenwood, their kindergarten structure is 2 to 12. So you have to have a 2 to 12 to allow transitional kindergarten, because they are age eligible below 5. So no 4-year-olds cannot play in their play structure. They are not allowed to play.
What's the difference between that?
Oh.
That's typically smaller in size, different apparatuses, depending on the student's brain activity, and the structure. It has to do with the weight requirements, how much weight it will withstand. As you can imagine, the younger the students, the less sturdy for larger students. And an additional requirement for Title V is that the early childhood education playgrounds are required to have a shade structure over them now.
Plus the play structures that's designed for 4 to 12 are designed for smaller kids that doesn't have the muscle and strength as a thing. So you design your playgrounds to encourage kids to play, but play safe, to develop their muscles and all that stuff. So that's the big difference between the age group of play structures. There's apparatus that's smaller that the little kids can utilize, and there's apparatus that the larger kids can use. But that's the whole goal, is having an age-appropriate equipment to have the child develop in a good, safe way.
5 to 12 is cooler. The 4 to 5 is, at least that's what Jane says.
Well, I don't know.
She's
the
correct.
2 structures right now that are going up in our preschool area look kind of cool. We'll add some pictures. Okay. Any questions on Robla play structure? Okay, the next, oh, I'm sorry.
Where would the Robla play structure go?
I'm going to safely assume it's going to be in that kindergarten area because that's where all the other kindergarten classes would be.
Okay.
So then what would we do with that play structure, right?
Well, no, so like the other students wouldn't be on it, like the older students wouldn't have access to it when the other students are playing. Is what I was kind of trying to get to.
They would replace it, yes. Yeah. The other students have their own
Right, right.
play structure.
I wanted
Yeah.
to make sure they wouldn't have access to like, say, because it's gonna not
Right.
be fully for them. Like, I don't know if like a 12-year-old could break something on a preschooler's jungle gym. So I just wanted to make sure like they would be separated, gated off. So, you know.
Well, I know this is a public discussion, but I will say that there is an apparatus in that area that actually is fun. I don't know what that circle thing was. I kind of tested it, and that's actually a good. Maybe. Maybe a visiting superintendent took some pictures, but and I'm over 12, but it actually is a fun apparatus. But, you know, Mr. Cap during the day, he has, you know, schedules for recess and what's allowable, so.
I was only asking because I remember when I was a kid and we destroyed the little kid playground, so that's kind of why I was asking.
And President DeLuz probably knows which one I'm talking about. Okay, so the two other projects I want to talk simultaneously because it really is important are besides the Bell preschool TK project, the next project that we have that's going on is our main pre-K TK project, right? And so Maine, we received a grant to build 6 new classrooms. I just got to make sure. Hold on. Oh man, I'm going to talk 3, 1 over there and then 2 right here. Okay, so the grant for Maine is for 6 classrooms, 2 pre-K, 2 TK, and 2 K. And I want to be clear because I know this is public, right? There is no plan at this time to move pre-K to the elementary sites, right? But based on the grant, we just have to ensure that the specifications for the pre-K meet Title V and Title II requirements, right? With that said, I'm actually going to skip and go in the back first.
Pre-K meaning preschool?
Preschool.
Okay.
Thank you, right? So similar to what happened at Taylor, right? At Maine, they will demolish, the plan is to demolish 10 portables and replace them with 6 classrooms. So I'm at the same situation at Maine that I had at Taylor, right? But right now, what's more urgent is the 4 additional classrooms are currently being used. And I don't know if Ms. Newhouse wanted to say what they're being used for, but they are for our support services. I know our PLST is in there. I believe our speech or, okay, sorry.
We house the PLSTs who support the district. We have our SCORI mental health clinician, our school psychologist, our social worker, an art room, our 2 TK rooms, a library, and indoor PE. So lots of space that's being used.
So again, 10 are going to be demolished and replaced by 6, right? So support spaces for Maine is also something to process. But one of the things that we have at Maine from the last construction project are these portable restrooms that are right in front of a set of portables, right? And we are leasing them. And how long have we leased them, Mr. Castillo?
For many years since I have it there, but
I'm looking at Mr. Langley. We've been leasing these restrooms for 7 years, right? And why I put this here is obviously in the design, if the grant allows, if there's enough money and is allowable to replace these portable restrooms with permanent ones, then I'm excited, then I've saved some money. However, I want to be mindful that if it's not allowable, that we really need to think of a more permanent solution than getting to 8, 9, 10 years of these portable restrooms that are actually right in the middle of her playground. And it is in front of 3 portables, and I always think of the safety of students hiding behind the restrooms in between the 2 classrooms. Now, during construction, one of the portables, as Ms. Newhouse had said, is used for the library. So, and this is way back at the end of the school. It's not even central to the school where students have to go to the library. But that library is going to be, that portable is going to be demolished. And the library is going to be moved to 2 of the portables that are right behind that temporary or portable restrooms, right? So why put this up here? Because all the work to move the restroom from the back portables to the 2 in the front will not be eligible from the grant. I'm just going to pause because we have to do it, right? We have to provide a library to our students, and currently that library is in 1 classroom, correct? And the plan is to house them in 2, but all that moving, all that setup, that is not eligible in the current grant. So that is an expense that is coming up sooner. Questions on Maine?
One of those spaces also houses our studio for our news program, and that's equipment that has come through grants through SEVA, and it's not equipment that we can just roll out at any time to utilize. We have green screen, we have soundboards, and so that needs a space as well in order to maintain using that equipment and maintaining that grant.
Any questions for Maine?
Maybe a solution.
Now, this library that we're talking about, that was put in, I want to say, 7 or 8 years ago. It was there in one of the modernization projects. I want to say it was the what? About 10 years ago. At that time, that building was fairly new, and the district purchased it. So instead of crushing it and demolishing it, could it be moved to like a school like Taylor or something like that to give support space that we already have a building? I know it's going to take a cost to move it and set it up and stuff like that, but it's just a thought.
And I have a similar question. What are the ages of the children?
We will get back to you, but I'm certain I asked Mr. Castillo, and maybe even Mr. Hickey, because he was here, how old some of those portables were, right? Because the cost to lift a portable and relocate it is...
They're all 25 or older. 25-year-old modulars do not respond well to being lifted and moved. So in the process of transferring them to another location, they probably will be destroyed.
Well, I think the other issue is, are the grants that we're doing are basically based on the idea of moving away from portables, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm assuming, I mean, is there something written in the grant that says you actually have to, in other words, you can't just repurpose it. You can't just do new building and then repurpose the portables. Is there a requirement that you actually have to get rid of the portables?
No, but
okay.
The new modulars that have been built, you can repurpose after a year.
Okay.
You can. You just have to use them for what they've been built for the first year. They can be repurposed.
Okay.
And to your question, to actually move a modular costs approximately $10,000. There's an additional 10 if you're hooking it up to a piece of property where there's no utilities. It'll cost you another $10,000 to run utilities to it. Yeah. Just to move it is about $10,000. Yeah.
much does
It's
a
a lot
brand
cheaper than those tiny houses they're building.
Modular, it's about $1 million per classroom,
A new one.
a new one.
How much does it cost to build a classroom? One classroom.
About $1 million.
So,
But a portable is much cheaper, but a modular,
Okay. I use modular instead of portable.
you get a portable for about $200,000.
so the next project is Glenwood, right? So my ultimate goal is to add one thing is to add an additional TK class. Currently they have one DLI TK class, while all the other grades, most of them have two. To solidify that program, it would be best to offer two, right? And with that model, it avoids combination classes. And I believe this parent is has a child that's in a combination class. I understand we do it because of students and staff, but ultimately, if we work towards having a program that sustains two at every grade level, we would solidify that program and ensure that we don't have combo classes, right? So that's my one thing. And in order to do that, if we start with two, we would need more classes just to offer two for the DLI. Secondly, Glenwood has one classroom that's shared by the RSP and the intervention staff, right? Because similar to Taylor, they have no additional space on that campus. They have a lot of space in general, like in the playground and the area around it, but they do not have any additional support staff. And this year, right, one enrichment teacher is providing enrichment on a cart, right? Because Dr. Rodriguez had to repurpose the classroom to provide support, a space for support services, right? And they're making it work, but in terms of confidentiality, I'm certain, I know many times she and Ms. Tran might be kicked out of their offices to ensure that there's a space for confidential conversations. So I have, whether it is a portable classroom, right? I did ask to price out to bring two portables to Glenwood because there is, if I'm correct, Mr. Hickey, there is opportunities to provide portable for adults, different requirements for portables for students.
Correct.
Is that correct? Okay.
So to just provide some more context in regards to our enrollment and the spacing that we have on our campus, for the trickle effect for additional TK, right now with one TK DLI program, that's feeding into two kinder DLI classrooms that are filled. So that's with one. So if we bring in an additional TK class, we're looking at that also being impacted. And right now we don't even have enough space with the growth. So our previous third grade class, which is now fourth grade, we aren't able to do a 2-2-2 because I have a 4-5 combo and a 5-6 combo for DLI. And so the language acquisition, the percentage of language that is supposed to be allocated for those classrooms, one teacher cannot give that to two different grade levels with efficiency. And so there's a long-term academic effect that's trickling down and is going to continue to progress and affect our kids, both with obtaining, your seal by literacy, being able to get reclassified. There's a lot of long-term effects there. We have no extra classrooms in regards to, so our intervention specialist is in one room with 3 IAs that houses every single grade level with a grade level set of kids at one time, while the RSP teacher is also providing instructional minutes to kids with IEPs with her IA all in the same room at the same time. And so we're giving the needs to those kids, and that was the best solution we could find because we don't even have extra classrooms. Like the other sites have an area for their PE classes to go indoors. When it's raining, too hot, too cold, we don't even have that. So when it's too hot, too cold, we're either trying to find some other means because our stage also doesn't have a railing, so it's unsafe to be up there, We can't use the multi-purpose room because of our lunches, which we also now share with New Hope because we have to provide indoor space for them. And as soon as their lunches are done, we have our ELOP programs after school, which take up a majority of our space as well. So it also affects, so we have our BCOA who's actually doesn't even have a space, is actually in a storage kinder room between classes. So she doesn't have an office space, even though we have a full-time BCOA. And then we also, with the inclusion specialist shutting down the SDC, bringing in the students who were previously in SDC and now in the inclusion program, we have inclusion specialists on campus that also does not have a space to conduct her meetings and work with her kids one-on-one. So again, that's Ms. Tran and I giving up our office space, which we're happy to do, but in a long-term solution where she doesn't have a space for confidentiality, and she's actually pushing in to that RSP intervention room. So now we have 3 different programs running with our highest need students who have those academic needs, and we can't properly support them. So unlike the other areas, other sites who are able to offer more after-school programs, right now we do have START, which is knocking at 190 enrollments and take up almost, they take over half of our classrooms after school. And then we have Helen that takes only one classroom, but then we have our dance remix, which is knocking about 90 students, which there's no alternative space for PE. We don't have any shaded areas, which the shade structure is coming, which will help, but we have a lot of parent concerns in regards to when weather comes, it's too hot or too cold for their kids to be able to do these programs. And so those are safety concerns. And then we also have other programs like grants that we want to offer, but with the lack of space, we're unable to provide that to our local community. So the impact of also sharing our facilities with New Hope has been ongoing in regards to safety and being able to, it's a huge impact on our food services. It's a huge impact on the cleanliness of our site as well. So I know right now we're sitting at project priority number 6, but it does have a long-term trickle effect, and it's very much hitting home. We've had a lot of parent meetings in regards to mostly our combo classes and the academic effects for those students.
Can I? No, I already did. It's similar.
Okay. And this last project is just
Make a comment. And it's Dr. Rodriguez's last statement. You guys hear what she said? What was her last statement?
Priority number 6.
Priority number 6. Look at the projects that are before hers.
recommendations.
Well, this is an opportunity
I think that it's very clear
to
that
add another category here, correct? All right.
But I think it's very clear that every project.
It's very clear that every campus has some level of need, and trying to figure out what do we do first. That's the hardest part. And I don't think that numbering them was in a way to say like one is like more important than the other one, or one is more valuable than the other one, or these kids are better than, or are more in need than these kids. And it does feel overwhelming, right? Because if you only have $10, how are you going to get all this work done? And so I just want to say that I hear that there are concerns at every campus, and numbering them, I think is a great start, a great recommendation. But I personally understand that there are challenges at every campus, and I'm not hearing what everyone is saying about the needs for their campus.
I think to that end, and I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but one of the things I think we're seeing in the priority process has to do with the equity. Because if we think about it and we look at the investments that have been made, and we had this conversation at the last workshop, unfortunately, Taylor Street has, in terms of a lot of the things that needed to get done, they probably got the least amount done of any of our sites. And except for, and then I'll put Glenwood there too, but that's because Glenwood was probably 30, 40 years newer although it's not new anymore, but it's still 20, 30. It's significantly newer than most of our other sites. But in this case, like we said, there are just so many things and so many needs at Taylor that just have gone unmet. And, you know, we had to put so many resources that we did invest into Taylor, into the actual learning spaces. And so that's probably why when we talk, once again, if we're talking about equity, trying to work to get them to where they need to be so that, anyway, they're not quite as far along in terms of having a lot of those needs met as some of the other sites. And I think that's one of the reasons why it seems like it's a little bit further up on the priority list.
Absolutely.
You said that?
Absolutely. But Glenwood hasn't gotten everything that Bell and Robla and Maine has as well.
Right.
And as a system, you have to ask yourself, are we going to build classrooms first, right? Because she has a point. Her classroom is in the sixth position.
Mm-hmm.
Are we going to build classrooms before we build play structures, restrooms, and libraries? And I think that's a question that the district has to answer. Is there another category that bumps her classroom need up to the number 2 slot?
So the reason though why that happens is, now take a look at most of the projects that are further up. Notice the cost category they're in.
Absolutely.
In other words, for the cost of building 1 or 2 classrooms, we're probably able to fill or fulfill a number of those other the area 5, the PCI 5 projects. So some of it is just a matter of it's a smaller project, so they're smaller so that we can get more of them done for less money.
Absolutely.
And so that yeah, and that's one of the when you're
her
setting
classroom is in the 5 as well.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So public comment, and then Mr. Raven, and then so you do public comment.
All right. So public comment comments comes from Christian Ramos. As a third grade teacher, DLI enrollment teacher at Glenwood Elementary, I wanted to highlight the critical role in DLI program plays in promoting diversity and inclusion in our district. Expanding this program by adding transitional kindergarten classes will strengthen our community over time. Additionally, investing permanent space for essential services like intervention specialists, speech pathologists, mental health support will enrich our teacher environment, ultimately benefiting our students' learning experience. Allocating funds to these areas will foster growth and excellence in our district.
One of the things, if I'm understanding this correctly, when it comes to prioritizing these projects, if on the FNI, the Facility Needs Index, the first bullet point on that is safety. And therefore, are we going to put safety at a lower category in order to elevate some of the needs for classroom space? And that's why at this point, the structures contribute to the safety of the students. And so that's something to give thought to.
Hello. My child is at not Glenwood. Yeah, at Glenwood, and she is in the DLI program. And it's kind of disheartening to hear that as she gets older, the classes may be combo classes, because that's not why I enrolled her in the program in the first place. So to hear that, it could be discouraging to other parents like myself who are trying to give my child an opportunity to learn multiple languages if I know that she won't be able to really get the full program throughout 1st through 6th grade. So that is disheartening to hear. But my second question is a priority, what is a priority based on? Are you guys also looking at each school and where they're at on their reading level, mental health level, attendance level? Because sometimes some of these structures, you think of them as structures in classrooms and places for people to go to talk to a mental health therapist, but that plays into also the attendance rate in our schools as well as the graduation rate. So I'm just trying to figure out what else are you looking at besides safety when you're looking at the different schools and the priority levels?
That's a very good comment. And the demographics as it relates to the special needs of students, who need services, they were considered. They were not a category that we chose to put on in this particular tool. It can be added. But as a system, I think every school district, every site in this school has its own needs as it relates to student needs around special education, intervention, and also as it relates to enrollment. The enrollment trends there's no enrollment trends in one site that's a complete departure from the enrollment trends at another site. The enrollment trends in the district are pretty consistent site to site. But I do want to revisit that my suggestion was not that safety and security loses its position. Again, I simply provided the tool. I have not suggested how this team makes a decision. But the thought in school districts has always been we build from the classrooms out, right? And so, is there another category that can be considered if it's the decision to build from classrooms out? Then Glenwood should be in a higher spot. That's something for all of you to consider. Are you going to build from the classrooms out? Wherever you could put another category for a classroom at the bottom or anywhere, but are you going to build from the classroom out? Are you going to replace restrooms that you've been leasing for 7 years and not provide Glenwood with a classroom first? That's an operational decision. That's a theoretical decision. That's a philosophical decision that you make. Do you add another category to where your classrooms are first if you have the money, right? Because the price does have an impact.
So to reiterate, the TKK pre-K project at Maine is moving forward regardless because it's a different pot of money. And so when that happens, it's going to create a domino effect where we're going to lose these other things, which we need to find some way to replace them. Secondly, all 5 of our school sites are applying to be community schools. And that means that we're going to need to make sure that we have these support spaces at all of our sites because we're going to be bringing in even more services that we need to provide for our students. And if we don't have the proper facilities to do that, it makes it that much more challenging for us to be successful community schools if we receive these grants.
And just for clarity, right, the priority project number is just a result from the index and the PCI. And if you really look from 1, to 6, it's a 15-point difference, right? And so that's why we're having this facilities discussion, because we can, based on our funding availability and priority, move anything anywhere. I'm going to use an example. This last one, this is just my little baby, and the score is only 40, right? And it is just providing sensory paths on our blacktops, right? I don't know if you're familiar with sensory paths, right? But they're just activities that students can do on the playground. Another activity that improves focus, behavior, mood, engagement, physical activity, and overall learning. But it's the last one, but it probably is the cheapest. I'm just going to say it's probably the cheapest, but it's still priority number 8. Okay. Finally, I want to make sure, as President DeLue says, all these things that we talked about, even on the board, right, doesn't eliminate the need for other projects. So we do know that we have Central Kitchen at Bell Avenue, right? That was approved by the board in June 2023, right? Why put Central Kitchen Taylor as something to consider? Because when I first started, I still had questions. Well, why didn't we consider, Taylor Street? And to be transparent, I don't have all that information, right, of why we chose Bell versus Taylor, the comparison of cost as well as the availability of facilities. right? And as President DeLu says, even if we have a central kitchen at Bell, it doesn't eliminate that we have to look at Taylor's Kitchen, right? And their cafeteria. I don't like to call it multipurpose room because I think of multipurpose room as the ceilings, but I don't know how many. Do you have like 4 lunch sessions? I think 4 lunch periods, right? Obviously, the Bell Central Kitchen will eliminate this, right? Fields, I want to recognize in the last facilities master plan, they discuss improving all the fields at all the schools, right? Transportation center, I have to mention that we lease those facilities, right? Whether this is a project now, 10 years from now, we are leasing facilities. Probably longer than the 7 years of the portable restrooms, but we are leasing transportation facilities. And then our little warehouse right here, right? We really need to look at that because I think it was last year, was it last year that it went down and we had to transport all the products in the facilities to a temporary location? So this is immediate need. Well, this is a need, I don't want to say immediate. This is a need that we also need to recognize.
And as a reminder, you can make your comments and leave them on that board as well on those list of projects. And as the superintendent prepares to discuss funding, this is a slide that just reminds you of what are all the available funding streams to a school district.
Chuck, can you replace, so I could talk, but I just realized, you know what, maybe it's easier if I have 3 small slides and he'll pass it out. You can go ahead to the next slide. Thank you. So I just wanted to remind all at the June 29, 2023 board meeting, right, that the board did approve where the general fund would lend $7 million. That's okay. The general fund will loan $7 million, and approximately $2 million from this project will be used to build the central kitchen at Bell Avenue, right? And I put that 8980903, right? Because the approximate price to build the central kitchen at Bell was about $9 million, right? So it was presented to be cost neutral. It's currently on pause, right? I put it on pause at the beginning of the year. Why? One, I needed to make sure that we had enough cash flow with our finance situation. I wanted to make sure that Mr. Castillo was still comfortable to loan this amount, right, during this time of fiscal uncertainty, right? Still moving forward, we're not sure. And then, let me look at my notes. I know I have notes. Oh, and then I wanted to make sure that the board was comfortable with the overall budget that we had available to us. So I do want to acknowledge that at the beginning of last year, right, Ms. Lee was part of discussions of looking at the specifications of the central kitchen, right, to see if it was possible to build the central kitchen at a smaller size, I would say, right, for cost savings. Next slide. Oh, thanks, Chuck. So let's take a look at what was presented in June and where we are now, October 2024, right? So Bell Avenue, that amount of money was already received. It was actually received at the time of June 29, 2023, right? And as stated, Taylor modernization, we did receive all of that, right? However, we don't have $2 million available. We have $900,000 available, right? Because The rest of that money was used for previous modernization projects, right? And then the developer fees is available. We have that amount, right? But you'll notice this amount in red, which is a similar project. When it was presented in March 2021, the numbers are a little bit different, right? They went down by 127,000 and some change, right? So the availability of reimbursements is not the same. Next slide. So what do we currently have on hand, right? We have about $1.6 million. 900 in the Taylor modernization, and then, you know, Mr. Castillo is comfortable with 751 in developer fees, right? What can we expect from the 3 modernizations is about 4.4 million. So total 6.0888954. Does that look about right, Mr. Castillo? Right. That's how much money, right, that we have on hand and that we can expect from modernizations, right, to for the central kitchen or for any of these other projects, right? And then we know, right, we're not allowed to make a statement regarding any propositions, but we do know that Prop 2 is on the ballot, right? And with that, the next construction, the school that's next on this, that's eligible for modernization is actually Bell Avenue. It is not Glenwood nor Taylor. It's actually Bell Avenue, right? So it's important to process, right? When we talk about priorities, Central Kitchen was about $9 million, right? And I don't, unfortunately, I don't have an updated amount when Ms. Lee was working on if we reduce some size of, was it the kitchen area? The square footage for the kitchen area, how that would impact the cost now. Because the cost you received for the central kitchen was in 2023, right? We're now 2024, and moving forward, we will be in 2025. So what we know is going to come for sure is about, what did I say, 6.06 million. What did I say, 6 million, right? So when we talk about all of the things that we need, right, this is where I want to have the discussion, like direction, like where do we move forward, right? If we are moving forward right now with the central kitchen at Bell Avenue, then all other projects have to be on pause, right? Because we don't have any additional funding that's coming, right? And we have to be mindful that whether it's 8 million or 9 million, we're only going to get reimbursed for 6. So the additional amount would be from general fund. Questions?
Proposition 2 is a state facilities general obligation bond. The last bond that the district received, it was a district-specific bond. Districts can go out for facilities bonds individually, but the state also goes after much larger state facilities bonds. And so there's a current ballot before the voters to give Californians, public school districts, a bucket of money for facilities. Let's say that it passes. There's already $317 million of applications ahead of this one. And so these applications will be satisfied as long as the bond holds up. Typically when a state goes after a state bond is approved, it's in the billions. And so this would be satisfied pretty quickly. I think the last state facility bond was in excess of $15 billion. And so, but that's a long shot. We don't know what the bill is going to do, but that's what Proposition 2 is. It's a statewide facilities bond for It's not just public schools, it's also for community colleges as well. They're the only construction application that the district had to apply for to get money to help do new construction. President.
So the way it works is the state provides matching funds, as he discussed earlier, for new construction. For every dollar we put up, the state puts up $1. For every dollar that a local school district puts up, the state puts up $1. For modernization, meaning improving an older school district or something like that, for every 40 cents of the dollar, they'll put up 60 cents of the dollar. So what happens is there's applications that are out there now, because right now there's no money. And so there's applications where people who qualify for the matching funds, but because there's no money, they're not able to get the matching funds. So should it pass, what will happen is he's saying right now there's already $317.9 million worth of applications that are waiting for funding. Among those is the $3.7 million for Bell Avenue. So the other projects, the ones he has listed up there, we've already gotten, or we're already in line, and we're already just waiting for them to send us the money for those. That bottom one is the one that is we're expecting. We've met all the qualifications. We're expecting that's money that would come in should that bond actually get funded. Does that clarify
answer the
it?
question? Okay. Good question.
If it gets the money, then it can go.
This particular money, when the district receives it, is specific to that project, not these.
Right.
This is a specific project.
That's already been done, right?
Yes.
Yes, that's work that's already been done.
Yeah.
Yeah, all of those are all work that's already been done. We fronted the money, and so this is money that's supposed to be coming back to us so that we can help fund this other stuff.
The reason why you like state facilities bonds, it does not hit your tax rolls. It's a local bond. You pay for the bond through your property taxes. They should. But that's the difference. If it's a local bond, you pay for it. Yeah.
Oh, I mean, the state bond, everybody pays for it.
We
Our state pays for it.
It's funded differently, right? They sell it on the.
But for communities like ours where we don't have like crazy high property values and all of that, it's easier to have those sorts of matching funds. As he had said earlier, communities that have very, very high property values, have relatively wealthy people, they don't go after the state funds. They generally are able to fund it based on their own tax base. Yeah, we're not
allowed to.
Yeah.
We're not allowed to take a stance.
The hopes is when individuals receive when individuals receive all the voter information, it's in there. The hopes is everybody reads it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the information is given to the public. Mm-hmm.
So that actually concludes our presentation, right? This is an opportunity where if you have those Post-its, you have questions or comments regarding any of the projects, right? Oh, Ms. Lee wants to say something.
I have so much to say. I wanted to, and I don't know if now's the time, but I created a scorecard for the Hub Kitchen itself, just so that was represented and you guys had some facts there, just because I know that a lot of that has been verbal information, so I wanted to make sure that you had something here.
Can I ask you a question?
Absolutely.
So say this central kitchen goes in.
Mm-hmm.
When we update the kitchens at a particular school site, do they need to be as big and with everything that they have now, or will it be a cheaper process to update those kitchens in order to do that?
So this is my outlook. The Bell Avenue Kitchen Project, Central Kitchen Project, was approved. And ever since it was approved, even before it was approved, I had been fighting for that to be at Taylor. I didn't make it publicly. I was really happy to get it approved. and was willing to kind of do whatever workaround we had to do, which would be significant, in order to make it work. However, now that other things are on the table, I cannot tell you just how big of a problem the Taylor Street kitchen and cafeteria are for that site. Sylvia is the kitchen manager there. I'm sure she would be happy to speak on behalf of that kitchen, just the sheer size of it, the age of it. I have a lot of information on this sheet. This is a 75-year-old kitchen. It does pose a tremendous amount of safety risks, and there's really nothing that we can do to fix that kitchen because of DSA. There's nothing that we can do. We can put new equipment in there, but we cannot change the footprint of that kitchen. We can't, bust down any walls because we can't do that because of DSA. So for me personally, I would really, really like to see that hub kitchen built at Taylor Street. We were talking about money before, and our last all-in budget from the RFQ that was released for the architects was $5.7 million. That $5.7 million was inclusive of equipment. New things have happened, and food services has, because equipment is typically about $1 million for all the equipment that needs to go into that hub kitchen. And talking to Gerardo, looking at our participation, the amount that we have available for food services, we can put up that $1 million for the equipment and absorb that cost ourselves within the department. We can't put up any more money because that is just not allowed. We're not allowed to do any infrastructure changes like that. But I just wanted to talk about just in terms of this other list of future projects, I really believe that the hub kitchen would solve many of the projects on this list. So Central Kitchen at Taylor Street alleviates the need for a kitchen at Taylor Street. It alleviates the need for a cafeteria at Taylor Street. The Bell Avenue cafeteria, Lisa isn't here to represent that. However, preschool is eating meals in the classroom now because that is a recommendation for preschool to do family style meal service. So that is something that preschool is now doing. So before, it was a really big issue for Bell Avenue because they were having to fit preschool and Bell Avenue students in their cafeteria. That's no longer an issue. Our fields, my hub kitchen is not going to save those. Transportation center can't speak on behalf of that either. It will alleviate the issues that we're having at the warehouse because our new warehouse space will be at that hub kitchen. That is ideally what we're going to do. So when you ask about how does this impact the other kitchens, I feel like our other kitchens are okay. I feel this summer we did a lot of work. We put in stainless steel countertops. We put in brand new combi ovens. During fall break, I put in 3 brand new dishwashers at 3 of our sites. So we are doing a lot. And I feel like we can continue, the Food and Nutrition Services account, can continue to maintain that equipment and do what we need to do at those kitchens because we're going to have this other space that is going to give us so much opportunity to be flexible and make moves when we need to so that we can address whatever comes up. Really, we are going to be able to be really flexible. But Taylor Street is, if we're going to do this, is where it needs to be. So I just want to say that.
Thank you.
Any comments?
I don't know about necessarily that, but so we have dollar amounts attached to each of these, all of these projects? All of them, at least all the ones that are set and prioritized. What does the total dollar amount come to?
A little over 12 million.
A little over 12 million.
Is that including the hub kitchen?
Does not, just the top 8. We know the price on the hub kitchen, or at least what it was 3 or 4 years ago. It'll cost more today. So the district is aware that estimate is so old. It's going to be more expensive now.
And what we could do is provide a list of all the projects, and thank you, Nikki, for providing the list for the central kitchen possibility at Taylor, and then have the dollar amount. You might say 12 million, but at least we would have a dollar amount for each project. With what available funds we have.
So then the next question is going to be, so obviously either way we go, so if there's a total of 12 million plus, if we're talking about 12 million for the, I'm sorry, none of that stuff is included in that 12 million, correct? Right. Okay. So we're looking at the stuff that's there, which by the way is including the hub kitchen. then the question is, how do we then pay for that? Because we've only, based on what you said, we've got about $6 million that we're expecting to come in.
The quick answer,
What,
it's not necessarily that popular, as voters are somewhat bond fatigued. The quick answer is at some point the district, the board may want to consider going out for another facilities bond.
That's what I figured.
Yeah.
So the thing that I like is I like that we're having these conversations. I like that we're doing these things. I like that we have people, members from all of the constituency groups. We have community members, we have parents, we have teachers, we have staff, and we're setting these priorities. One of the things I want to make sure that we do as we go forward from this is we have conversations at each of the school sites about the needs for some of these things. Find out what our parents, what our community thinks, because if there's one thing that I know, that if our community has input, I know that they will have buy-in. And if they have buy-in, then passing a facilities bond when they know we're going to be responsible. One, talking about what we've done with the resources they've already trusted us with. And I think some of that is really kind of obvious because a lot of it is the external stuff. But letting them know what we've done with what they've blessed us with, what they've given us so far, and then talking about what we're going to do going forward and exactly what that's going to cost. I think that seems like a good direction to kind of go. Anyway, I realize I'm kind of jumping the shark, but in the end, I'm like, okay, great to hear and see and talk about all these projects, but it's no good if we're not also going to talk about how we're going to pay for it.
So what you're recommending is a facilities roadshow at each site.
Yes.
To add on to that, I'm not recommending school farm at that point, but what I do like about what you said is that
when we get community buy-in, it will help us with marketing this, because it's one thing to have parents and families involved. It's another thing to get the rest of the community involved and tell them that, why we have to pass this bond. So that will give us information, and it won't be just from us. It'll be from the Robla family, from everyone. So I like that.
I mean, let me just say for the record, I hate the way the state of California has decided to fund facilities. It is the most backwards way to do it, but it's the way that we have to deal with it. So anyway, I just think that once again, I think first you start by building the trust, getting the input, and then moving forward and doing, and then once you get it approved, doing what you said you were going to do. I think we've got a track record of doing that. I think we just got to point that out and then look at what we're going to be doing moving forward. Anyway.
And I want to be clear, I didn't have this facility workshop to say, hey, let's prep for a bond. It is true. If we wanted to do everything, we would need a bond pass. I'm here just because I want to be transparent. The board approved the project for the central kitchen at Bell, right? At that time, the project was guesstimated to be around $9 million. We have $6 million that we know that will be reimbursed to us. So I think it's only fair that we make a decision if we are going to move forward with the central kitchen, or I can keep it on pause, indefinitely, right? We do have $6 million that we have the opportunity to allocate. So I wasn't asking for a bond, I just wanted to be transparent. But if we wanted to do all these and then some, yes.
Out of that, we have something like you said available versus like about 4.4. We expect reimbursement from that, so we don't even have the cash on hand. I just want to be very transparent about that. So when I say why you feel comfortable about that, it's just the borrowing like another $4.4 million, knowing that eventually in a couple of years, hopefully we will get reimbursed from the money out of the general fund.
Quick question. So of the projects that are here, how many of these projects or which of these projects would, for example, qualify for state matching funds? And would it be more, I don't think it would be new construction. It would probably fall under modernization, right? Or would
it will be under modernizations. Those projects who have related to the classroom, those will be qualified for reimbursement.
Okay.
We talk about that like sensory pass will not, because this is
Right.
more like cosmetic, is versus maintenance versus
Mhm.
facilities upgrades.
So what about, for example, kitchens and cafeterias?
No, just to be clear, what he says is correct.
Yeah.
Of this list, this combined list, only thing you get reimbursement for are the classrooms.
Got it. Okay.
State of California only builds classrooms.
Got it.
So shouldn't that make the cost price or the price cost index slower, which would raise these to a higher on the priority list?
Yes, and that's why I suggested you look at that list and maybe add something to it.
Right.
Right. Right.
I just wanted to speak to just the immediate need, and obviously, I have a horse in this race, absolutely. But the board approved the hub kitchen, and we have been moving, we have been working, we have been planning, and I was just talking to Sergio, who is our district chef, that we partnered with Brigade, that we are working very closely, and using their expertise for our operations plan. And just the momentum that the food services has right now. With our staff, we have made tremendous leaps and bounds, and I don't think that I talk about that enough with this board. I know that our sites see it out at the sites. I know that our participation numbers absolutely reflect that. Big things are happening. They really are. But we are just at that ceiling. Like, we cannot go any further at this point. And we are, we're in motion, and we are already working on our operations plan for the hub kitchen. We are working with our staff, and I just can't tell you to put this on pause further, or to have this win taken out of our sails. Even if we do revisit this in a few years, I don't know how we're going to get this momentum and this energy that we have right now, that is really palpable in our department and with our team, how we're going to get that back. Because we're moving, and we're on a roll, and we're making plans, and Taylor is really also just an immediate need. So I just wanted to highlight that. You want to say something?
And just to touch on what Erica said earlier about me coming on as expertise in food or lunch, cafeteria, all that, working with Brigade. We originally, when she proposed a hub kitchen idea, we advised that it would be at Taylor. Even just the centralization of Taylor makes more sense. They had the space. It would eliminate a lot of those problems. And to speak on that momentum that she was saying, I wish you guys could come out to the kitchens. What these ladies do in some of these kitchens that are, about 20% bigger than the average home kitchen for a 2-bedroom house, and they feed 300 kids, not only once, not only twice, but 3 times, because they do supper as well. In kitchens with drawers, we break down raw protein. We're doing all this cool stuff, but we hit a plateau, we hit a ceiling. Our menu cannot evolve. We can't even bring new ingredients because we don't have the infrastructure. We don't have the refrigerator space, the freezer space. I know lunch is maybe overlooked, but I think it's the only thing in school that reminds kids of home. You're feeding these kids. The difference of them getting a frozen chicken patty to getting a chicken noodle soup made in house, that's the closest thing they're going to get to home at school. And the momentum that we've built, the fact that it was approved, we worked, hard. Erica's a tremendous leader. And I just really, if you pull the plug on this momentum that we have, it projects the program to kind of, either be very hard to be sustainable in the future without the infrastructure that they need. And that's just.
Can we get an updated cost or a current cost of what the hub kitchen would cost today? If we were at Bellamy? At Taylor.
Yes.
Or, I guess I did. Why was Bell Avenue chosen? I can't remember. It was overseas.
Bell Avenue had the infrastructure already in place. So if you do it at Taylor, then the cost is going to be more of an increase because there's no infrastructure.
And I done the ground utilities for the 2 stories about what it costs, but we don't see what's already the cost savings with a Taylor. That's how it was presented to us. I don't know all the details, but I know that was one major cost that was told that like we will have to bring all the utilities underground. The things that we don't see in the classrooms underneath are actually some of the most costly in constructions like that underground.
The most expensive is the electrical. And the electricals already was in place at Bell. I think that's why that was the shift. That's how it got down to 9 million. Yeah.
I have a question and a comment about the Taylor Kitchen. I'm at Glenwood, so I don't have a dog in the fight. But I think that when you mention community involvement and community feedback, if something was approved and then it's taken off the table, it's kind of discouraging for community members to get involved and put backing into something, and then it's taken away. So I- I'm there for you, girl. But my other question is for the kitchen. Does it have community access, or is it just for the school?
So in the summer, we run a community food program. Any kid under the age of 18 can come and grab breakfast and lunch. Any summer that we're hosting a food, that we have summer school at a site, any child in the community under 18 can come in and grab a meal, breakfast or lunch.
Yeah, we'd love to do so much more. Back in the day, we did cooking classes for parents at Glenwood, and like that is absolutely something we'd love to bring back. So things like that, we do farm to school field trips, having one of the field trips be at that kitchen for the students to come in and cook like we do now, but inside that kitchen and kind of show them the behind the scenes, this is how your food is made. Like, yeah, absolutely. That like the community aspect is where I can't wait to just imagine and dream and do this.
To give you a broader answer, all public facilities built with taxpayers' money is considered civic centers. All civic centers are available to the public. You just need to fill out a facilities use agreement.
Mm-hmm.
So every facility in this district is available to you. They're civic centers.
And I'm not going to speak on behalf of anybody else. I'm going to just speak on behalf of myself. And again, to reiterate that all these projects are important. The central kitchen is very important. And it's not that we don't want to have a central kitchen. We want to have a central kitchen. I think that there's just a cash flow issue. And that's why we're here trying to figure out exactly what to do. And so, again, I just want to reiterate that I hear what everybody is saying. I know that our kids in our community, they need to be able to eat at kitchens that are safe, and our folks need to work in kitchens that are safe. And I don't think that that's the issue, right? I think we know that all of these things need to get done, but we have hit a cash flow issue, right? And so we're just trying to figure out what is the next step that we need to do in order to solve that problem.
That's a great response. And I want to add that what you are doing here is pretty amazing. Everyone is passionate about the needs of their sites and their issues. Many school districts do not allow open forum when it comes to making these decisions. And this district has not always as well. And so whatever you decide, my hat's off to you, because the work is hard, the decisions are tough, because there's need everywhere. But this type of workshops, this type of forum, my hat's off to this district for having the courage to do it, because you hear things you want to hear, and you hear things you don't want to hear. And the decisions are hard. And at the end of the day, the board members have to make a decision, and everyone has to live with it. So it's difficult. And so I encourage you to provide all your comments to the board and to the executive team, and to the board. She said it twice. There's a need everywhere, and the decisions are going to be difficult, but everyone should remain passionate, bring forth your ideas and your comments on your projects that affect your site and your responsibilities, and trust that this board is going to make the right decisions, because my experience with this district, the board has always made decisions that has benefited the district, and it shows in the facilities that you do have. But there are some facilities that has not been given the attention that others have, and I think it's the right time to consider right sizing those school districts, those sites as well. who are disenfranchised in space. And, you know, the Citrus Kitchen is something that has an impact across the board, across the district. So again, I applaud all of you for this effort.
No, I would just like to say thank you to the Glenwood parent asking about if the school is open to you. It is your school, and that's the whole spirit behind what the district's applying for the community school, is that the school comes alive after 3 o'clock, and with Dr. Rodriguez's vision, it's open to the community, and it actually becomes more exciting, more inviting for families. And that's it is your school, and it will be open to you, and we want your input, and that's why I want to say thank you to you, because your passion and your knowledge of what your family needs, it's your school, and we're here to serve you, and you giving us your needs and you telling us what your family wants, and you're really inspired to contribute, is we can't thank you enough for that. So I just want to say thank you to you. So thank you.
Great comment.
So what's next? That it?
Really, I wanted to open it up if anyone had comments to
Okay.
Put posters on the board and then decide on that, because I will come back and give cost for each project.
Okay.
And then we can start by the next.
Okay, so yeah, so if you have comments, what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and adjourn the meeting. But if you have comments, please go ahead and put it on each of the various different projects. Please go ahead and put it on each of the project, the one that it's relevant to. Huh? Oh yeah. I was gonna do that before I adjourn.
I actually have one question. Couldn't the main avenue temporary library be combined with its court spaces if we were to build a library with court spaces in it?
So,
Like, can't this be one project?
well, I put temporary, I'm sorry.
Because how much are we spending on like temporary?
Let me just clarify temporary library, because currently it is housed in one portable in the back. During the construction of the pre-K TKK, which will probably commence maybe the middle of next year, that library is going to have to be moved to the front, to the two portables that are designated. That cost is not allowable in the grant. So this is the temporary two portables. And
I was thinking we were considering a possible library build there. Why can't they be?
And that was, I will be transparent, that was in the original facilities master plan, I don't want to say a real library, but a new library, but temporarily, that's why I put temporary, that is going to be moved up to the front. And that cost to move that is not covered by the grant.
Okay.
Okay, if there are no more comments on the facilities workshop, we're going to move on to item 5, board member requests for future agenda items and reports. Trustee Devine?
Nothing at this time.
Okay. Trustee Hamilton Stark?
Nothing at this time.
And Trustee Barnes? I do have one, and it's been a while, perhaps a presentation just on, one, the status of the community schools grants, but also kind of, to help us remind us exactly what we are applying for, what it is to be a community school, how this benefits not just our students, but the community. All right. And with that, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you so much, everybody who came out, and for those of you who are watching online.